Hi, my name is Chris, and in this tutorial we're going to talk about 5 different synth bass sounds and how to create them on the synthesizer. We're using the Moog Matriarch here, but since we're talking mostly basic settings, you might as well just translate all these things onto your own device. So let's start and get right into it, shall we? So let's start out with a classic Moog bass sound. We're using a Sawtooth wave, and basically everything here is initialized, so nothing is taking effect. The filter is open, and that's our basic Sawtooth wave. Now we're adding a second wave. They're both in the same octave range, and I'm going to turn on oscillator 2. And now we're going to detune oscillator 2 just a little bit. Alright, not too much. We don't want to get into the trance and house scene here. That's perfect. Now we're going to increase the envelope amount, because every time I press a note, I want to hear something like, right? And this can be done with the envelope amount. Going to pull a cutoff all the way down, the envelope amount all the way up. And now here are my settings. There's 0 attack, just a little bit of decay. The sustain is going to be all the way down, and then we're going to have no release. All right. That's great. You can play with the decay time a little bit. And then if it's too much, you can dial it back a little. But we're going to go and increase the resonance now. And to make it even more interesting, we're going to turn up the oscillator. So we're going to get just a little bit of distortion. Alright, so I should mention, while we're playing those bass sounds, we're always using them in a monophonic way. In this case, with the Matriarch, we have the voice mode set to 1, but if you use any other synth, you should probably check and set it to monophonic or unison mode, so you don't have any notes overlapping. Now, of course, this classic Moog style sound, since it's originated from the Moog, Mini Moog, I guess. It's using a feature called glide or portamento. Means that the notes slide into each other. You know, the pitch from one to the next note is sliding. Here's a trick: if you hold down the shift button and turn the glide all the way to the right, you only hear the glide applied when you're playing legato. Now in the next step, we're using the mod wheel to add some pitch modulation. So the LFO will modulate the pitch with a sine wave every time I increase the mod wheel. Now here's a cool trick. If you increase the attack of the filter envelope, Alright, moving on to the next example. This is inspired by Michael Jackson's Don't Stop Till You Get Enough and Thriller. And in this case, we're using 2 oscillators, but in a slightly different manner. We have one oscillator being a sub-oscillator, and then the main oscillator. And in this case, we're going to use a square wave being the low oscillator. So it's going to be set to the 16 foot, and the other one is going to be set to 8 foot, and is going to be a square, a narrow square wave. So this is kind of a pulse width sound, and both of them together work really well. You can also try for the sub oscillator to be a sawtooth wave. But for now, I'm going to leave it like this. And again, we're going to use the envelope. just have a little decay, 0 attack, little decay, 0 sustain. All right. All right, we're going to add a little resonance. Next up is our 808 bass synth, and this is actually quite simple because the basic waveform, it is just one oscillator, and we're using a triangle wave here, which is very soft. So what we're doing next is we're creating that plucking effect, and this is not a simple filter effect, but it's rather an oscillator pitch which is falling very quickly. All right, now we're using the signal generated from the filter envelope, and now we're applying it to the pitch. We're going through the attenuator, which we then can gradually apply it to the pitch. So the output of the envelope is going into the attenuator, and then the attenuated signal goes to the mult, which means that I can get this signal here, kind of multiply it 3 times, just in case I want to use it on a second or even third oscillator. We're going to plug it into the pitch in, and now what we should hear, with attack 0, then little decay, and 0 sustain, we should hear a very interesting pitch sweep. Right? Okay, now the pitch sweep will be quicker if I turn down the decay. So I want to make it very quick, and now I want to attenuate that effect by dialing back. And then we turn on the oscillator 1 fully. That means we get some more distortion. But to make it even a little bit more extreme, we're going to use a second oscillator. And since we have it already multiplied, the envelope signal, we're going to plug it into oscillator pitch in 2. And this time we're going to use the square wave, right? The next example is a house style bass, deep house or dance, and this consists of one oscillator being a square wave, and we're going to put it at the 16 at the lowest octave, and this should sound something like this. Alright, and then next we're going to add another square wave. This is 1 octave above. And then I'm going to increase the amp envelope release, which means that every time I release a key, the volume of that note will slowly fade out. And the time for this fade out can be controlled with the release knob. And next, we're adding the filter envelope. Now, we're increasing the filter envelope release here too, which means that while the volume is fading out, the filter is also closing and the sound gets darker. Okay, I'm gonna have to turn down the cutoff. Alright, so we can actually add a third oscillator and also have them as a square wave. All these three are now set to 12 o'clock. Add some delay. And then add some resonance. So how about some more distortion? Now I'm going to turn up the oscillators in the mixer, which will make the sound much more aggressive. Alright, for the last example, we're using a synth bass sound. We're using two oscillators in the same octave range. Both of them are a square wave. And now we're activating the sync button. And then you can say oscillator 2 is going to be hard synced to oscillator 1. And then if you detune them, you're going to get that wonderful, screaming, and very harsh sync sound, right? So this is how it sounds. So if you don't move the pitch, it's going to be very static. So we're using just a trick that I've shown you, and we're taking the filter envelope out. And we're using this to modulate the pitch of oscillator 2. And now we're applying the filter envelope and its movement, but in this case we're not moving the filter cutoff, but instead we're going again and using the envelope to modulate the pitch. And then, in this case, we're not using the filter envelope for the filter, it's just for the pitch. We could dial back the cutoff. And then increase the oscillator volume. Now I think the pitch is going to be routed through to all the other oscillators, so I'm going to have to do this. Alright, that's the synth bass sound. Alright, thanks for watching. If you liked that video, please subscribe to my channel, and also if you want to find out more, please feel free to check out my music on Spotify, find my Facebook and my Instagram. You can find all the information down below, and that's it for now. Bye guys.